Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new Chrome Tour golf ball from Callaway.
And now we are pleased to welcome in Joost Luiten. Long overdue congratulations for qualifying for the Olympics. The Olympic teams were actually finalized the day after the U.S. Open. So let's start here. When and how did you find out that the Dutch Olympic Committee wasn't going to allow you to compete?
I got a phone call on the 27th, the Monday. And basically they said, Joost, you're not going. We're not sending you. We don't think you're good enough. And that was about it. That was the only statement they gave. And I was quite disappointed.
Well, disappointed, I would imagine, had to have been an understatement. Were you insulted?
Not insulted, but it just didn't feel like everything went down in a fair way. What you can do here in Holland, if you don't meet the qualification criteria, you can apply for a wild card, basically. And then you got to show your case why you think you're good enough to compete in the Olympics. And the only question they need to answer then is, are you good enough to finish in the top 8 of the Olympics? And I said, I am good enough. I showed them all the evidence and the stats and everything. And they still came back with the only answer, no, we don't think you're good enough. And I thought, well, that's a bit strange, but if people don't understand golf, you might think I'm not good enough to finish in the top 8. But I thought I'll just want to have an independent somebody looking at my case, and that was the judge. So I thought, well, let's take him to court.
All right, so let's dig into some of the details here. First of all, what court did you go to ultimately to argue your case?
So, I mean, it's just the Dutch court, just a normal, regular court. But what we did, because it was a time-sensitive thing, you have to apply for what we call it here is a turbo-speedy process. So we applied our case at the court on Tuesday morning, the 2nd, 8 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was in front of a judge. Because before 5 o'clock that day in the afternoon, we needed a verdict, basically, to still be able to enter myself for the Olympics.
So I'm curious, what kind of arguments did you and your lawyers make in court yesterday to win the case?
Oh, well, we had a whole list of arguments, but the biggest thing, and that's where we won on, is in December 23, the Dutch Olympic Committee decided to change the qualification criteria for the golfers. So if they would have had those criteria from the beginning, when the qualification started, I would have qualified in 2 separate events. I would have been qualified straight away for the Olympics in those 2 events. But because they started it so late, I didn't feel like I had a fair chance, and I felt like I met their criteria, but that they came up with them so late, that wasn't my problem. I showed them I could meet those criteria, even though it was a little bit earlier than when they started them. I think that was the biggest thing that's why I won, yeah.
This is so strange. You know, the history of this game has plenty of examples of players being successful when others thought they might not be able to. You know, the primary example that comes to mind is Ben Curtis at the 2003 Open. At that point, he was ranked 396th in the world. Do you think that your country's Olympic Committee just doesn't understand golf because it's not a traditional Dutch sport?
That's the biggest issue what happened here. You got people making rules for a sport that's got a completely different dynamic than basically any other sport in the world. And if you let people that don't understand the sport, if you let them make the criteria, then it's not going to be the right criteria. And I've been fighting them for the last 10 years since we've been an Olympic sport. They never wanted to listen. And the 14th of June this month, I went down to them and I showed them all the stats of golf, like the examples that you said with Ben Curtis, and I showed them with Rory Sabatini winning a silver medal, being outside the top 150 in the world. I showed them that an amateur golfer won a PGA Tour event. That only can happen in golf. That doesn't happen in swimming or running or all the traditional sports. And that's what I presented to the judge as well, to show them that golf's got a completely different dynamic, and that the people that make the rules on my sports got no clue about my sport, and that needs to change in the future. So I was in the courtroom for myself on the short term to get myself into the Olympics, but also to make a point for the future of golf in Holland, or else we would be fighting them for another 4 years for the next Olympics. So I was in the courtroom for those two reasons.
I'm curious, what's the reaction been like back home? What do the Dutch people seem to think about this? Has it been a big deal?
It's been crazy. I mean, I've been calling nonstop the last 24 hours. I had so many messages of everybody that finally somebody that takes down those people that think that are untouchable and that have no clue about sports, even though they work for the biggest sport organization in my country. I even got messages from Swedish athletes that say, "Oh, we've been fighting our federation for years, and can you help us?" I mean, it's not only Holland, but it's worldwide. I've had calls from Argentina. I mean, it's just crazy, the things that come by now, and that shows you that there's still a lot of work to be done, and that they need to communicate more with the athletes. Because at the end of the day, the athletes make the Olympics, not those federations, and I think that's where they make a wrong, impression that they decide, but they don't make the Olympics. It's the athletes that make the Olympics, and that's where the power needs to go to.
Let's look ahead for a moment to Paris. You're going to be part of a delegation that is led by these people that you've just sued and won against. What do you think that's going to be like? You think it'll be uncomfortable?
I mean, to be honest, and I was very surprised, but basically the director that was in the courtroom that I was fighting against, he gave me a phone call about an hour after the verdict, and he said, "Joost, congratulations, well done, and let's make it a great Olympics. And I'm coming to watch you on the final day of the golf tournament." And I thought that's class, and I said the same. Let's make it a great Olympics. I'm not here, I don't want to do this, but I felt like I needed to do this, and luckily I had good enough points to do it and to win it. But let's focus on sport, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm all about. I want to compete. I want to make results. I want to win medals. I want to win golf tournaments. I don't want to sue people. That's not my thing. And I felt like I had to do it, but it's not what I want to do. And luckily, they feel the same. And the contact since then has been pretty good. And we need to make the results together. And hopefully this opened their eyes, and obviously it did, or else he wouldn't be calling me.
I wonder if you have allowed yourself finally to imagine, what it's going to be like marching in that opening ceremony, being part of a delegation that represents your country. People talk about it as one of the greatest honors that an athlete could ever have.
It is. I mean, and that's why I made such a big deal out of this, because it's not about a golf tournament. It's about representing your country. We don't get to do that often in golf, because it's such an individual sport. And to be able to play in front of people that don't understand my sport that well, because the Olympics is a lot bigger than just golf, and representing my country, and that's what I want to do, and that's what I look forward to.